Hello, the Astro 30 here, and today... What, sweet? Can you have another electronics video? Well, I guess, yeah. Yippee. Greetings, the Astro 30, drunk as fuck and on the floor here. I received a package in the mail today, and if you haven't really gathered from the title of this video what I'm doing, where the hell have you been? Anyhow, I'm going to open this package and we're going to see what we've got. So, just put a cap there. Now, I have received, amongst a lot of pallet wrap here, some stuff that I need to complete this project. Now, there's an envelope which is blank. I'm going to open said envelope. This all came from Ultronics Australia, by the way. I have in this package a heatsink. This is 200 millimeters long by 75 high, around about, I think it was about 48 deep. This is the heatsink that is designed for that 115 watt plastic power amplifier module that I've got. So I've actually got the correct heatsink, which means I'm going to have to drill and tap the holes in this, which is going to be a thorough pain in the ass. And I have also received, if I can get this crap off, Ultronics professional rack case. This is a 19-inch rack mount case, 2-unit high. And I'm just going to open the box and have a look at the contents. Piece of cardboard, and there's some instructions for the case. It's not very interesting. This is actually a sub panel or sub chassis type case. You only get 4 mounting rails, so you've got to really be careful how you mount things in the case. But the difference between this and the amplifier that I built previously is the sides. It allows you to put that sub panel, sub chassis anywhere you want inside the case. And a bunch of screws. I'm not sure what that is, so we'll open that package and have a little look. Oh, these would be the handles. Yep, they're the handles. They're anodized aluminium, and they're a lot better finished than the previous rack case I assembled. If we take this, get the cardboard out of my way. This is the front panel. This front panel is a lot different to the front panel that I had before, because this surface is not as rough, and that means I should be able to transfer my electroset, rub-on lettering just nicely onto this. And it looks like the screws for the top panel and the bottom panel actually are mounted on this front panel, so I don't need rails for that. These are the rear and internal sub panel. This would be the rear, I reckon. This would be the internal sub panel because it's smaller. So if we now look at my enormous penis, get out of the way. We have the top and, well, only the top at the moment. It's a slightly different designed rack case to the one I had before. Very interesting. And the other panel is here. So what I might do is I might assemble this case and actually have a look at what it looks like when it's assembled. But anyway, so that's basically what the case is going to look like. I'm reasonably happy. It should be pretty easy to do this. Okay, and now that I've had less alcohol and it's the next day, it's going to be fun in editing, making what I said about assembling this case make coherent sense. Anyhow, I'm looking at how I'm going to lay everything out in the chassis, and I came to the conclusion that I'm going to do what probably a lot of you are going to disagree with, and that is I'm going to mount everything to the lid on the inside, because, well, this lid gives it structural integrity anyway. And yeah, these rails that I've got, one here for supporting the top of the heatsink, they're rather large. The bottom of that one just clears the tops of these transistors just nicely, and I don't really want to sit around and muck ass around with the spacing of these transistors and run the risk of damaging them or the board. So I'm going to leave that well alone and just mount it to the lid. It's not what you're really supposed to do with a sub-panel design of case like this, but it's really the only option that I've got. And as we can see, everything fits in here. Speaker protector over here, power supply could move probably a little bit further over. I might even put some screw holes in line with each other. Transformer sits nicely. Preamp will sit in the center of the panel just nicely, somewhere around about here. I'll probably clear it of the speaker protector. So that will go here, and the power switch over here. And of course I'm changing the heatsink. That's not the heatsink I'm going to be using. So that's my idea, is to drill it to the case. I can mount it over there somewhere. You know, I'll make this as easy to assemble as possible. I'm going to need to leave room somewhere here for the star earth point. But I just wanted to get a basic idea of where everything was, and well, this power amp's probably not going to be sitting right there, probably further over that way a bit, once I've drilled the new heatsink, of course. So I think I've just backed myself into a corner. I now cannot get that module out. I'll have to take the rail back out, but yeah. The idea was that I was going to use some aluminium sheeting to mount everything to, free of the panel, but unfortunately that's not going to work out to crash hot. Okay, the other issue I might have is the spacing of this rail and actually getting these holes where I need them in the top of the heatsink, where I need to tap them to screw them to the rail. It has to be very, very precise. I think that's about right there. These should be spaced 10 mil apart. All these holes seem to line up with each of these fins just nicely. But this rail is going to support the top of the heatsink, and the transistor and circuit board, the transistors and circuit board will support the rest of the bottom of the heatsink and the module. So what I might do is just double check how accurate this is placed, mark out where I need to do the holes at the top here, so at least I can get somewhere semi-started on this, because this is going to be filmed over the next week or so, so it'll all be done in one video. And I did think about doing it in parts, but what's the point? I've already done the circuitry in parts. This is just simple hardware. It shouldn't take that much effort to do. So that's what I'm going to do, is going to mark this out, think about drilling it and see if I can tap it. So at least I can mount the heatsink to the rail, and then I'll worry about, you know, the transistors, because I've still got the original instructions that give me all the measurements to mark out and drill the transistor holes. So yeah, that's basically what I'm up to. Now I've got the heatsink marked and drilled. I've already tapped the top 3 holes to mount it to the rail. I am just tapping the transistor holes now, and it has to be very slow and steady because some of these measurements I found were very close to the fins, one here and this one here I believe. So these are the 2 holes I'm going to attack first and get them to tap, and then do the other 5. Okay, they're all tapped. I had a little bit of trouble with this particular hole here. It basically stripped out most of the threads, and there's minimal threads on the other side. The screw does actually do up, but what I'm probably going to have to use is a 15mm screw, probably all the way along here apart from up the top, just so it's got plenty of threads to catch on to the screw, because I think 10mm will be a bit too short. Anyhow, that's beside the point. It's tapped. I haven't tested it for a fit yet on the PCB, but I'll do that shortly. But I need to go to work this afternoon, so I'm running out of time. But what I'll do is I'll mount this into the case onto the rail, and then I'll mount the circuit board up to it and see how it looks. Okay, so typically I've got a problem. These larger transistors are too high up the board, so when you look at the standoffs, they're like 3 odd millimeter out, so it won't fit flush on the case. And also these MJE340s and MJ350 respectively are 5mm too low that way. So okay, so this is a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unsolder the output stage and push the board back up. But what I'll do is I'll try and push these transistors so they line up with the holes, and so at least I don't have to replace the transistors, and maybe use longer standoffs. I've got some 15mm ones, I think they are, from memory. They're a good 12mm anyway, so I can use them if I have to. It might just give me just enough space that I need. And that's how we make the best of a bad situation. I've now moved the transistors down and managed to make these ones here fit properly. They're not isolated, of course. I was just, you know, retrofitting it to the heatsink so I could make my modification. There's not much of a bow in the board, I don't think. I can't actually see one. No, it looks relatively flush and straight. And with 12mm standoffs on it now, so that will fit in the case just nicely. But now I don't have time because I need to get ready for work. But I took each transistor out and placed them out on the desk in the order they came out, and then put them back in the same order, so I shouldn't have to rebias the output stage. It should be still correct. What I should probably do is just make sure that those transistors are still working. So I'll just use my in-circuit transistor tester. Which, well, that's a foul. It doesn't even appear to work. Right, let's try that again. I took it off the heatsink just so it's not, you know, shorting transistors together and causing a problem. So we look at that. It's flashing there. It's saying that it's a PMP, which should be correct. There we go. That one's working and saying it's a PMP. It's saying it's an NPN. And that one's also saying it's an NPN. Just for shits and giggles, I'll connect it up to, if I can, these transistors. That's saying it's an NPN. It's saying it's also an NPN. And that's saying it's an NPN. The other two must have been PMP. I think I mistook what I said there. Yeah, PMP. Okay, so all those transistors are appearing to work. They're not short-circuited or anything, so it should be fine. Let's put back in service. And I've just finished work for the day, so time for a nice beer. Cheers. Alright, so before I finish for the night, what I'm planning on doing is mounting the power amp to its new heatsink with the isolators and stuff for the final time, because I can just take the back panel off of the rack case to slide the power amp in from behind. So that's what I'll do, and I want to actually put it onto a DC power supply and test that it's actually still functioning before I proceed any further. Okay, they're mounted now, so I'm just going to check that they're isolated from the heatsink. That one's fine. 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 And that one's fine. So they're all isolated from the heatsink. So now I can proceed to do a test. Okay, power amp's got 2 screws holding it in on the heatsink. It's got to come back out to drill the holes to mount it to the chassis first. Back panel is removed. It's got to come out to be drilled anyway. It's hooked up to the power supply. I'm set at plus minus 20.7 volt roughly to start with. Current limited. Got the DSO just hanging out in the breeze there. Got the DDS set to 1 kHz 1 volt as normal. So I'm ready to apply the load, watch the current and see if it limits, and yeah, stand by for blowing up and laughing. We got about 700 mA and we have an output. We're currently at 22.3 volts, so the output stage is working. It's not got massive crossover distortion or anything, so the transistors are not damaged. The current limiting lights are starting to light, so I'll turn the current limit right off. So now I need to wind the DDS up to its current voltage, which I think was about 2.8 volt peak to peak, somewhere around about there. Well, I just put it in millivolt, didn't I? 2.8 volt. There we go. As we can see, it's clipping bad, and well, I haven't upped the voltage to its operating voltage yet, which is around about 30 volt, and it's dropping off on the supply, so it's not quite powerful enough. So I'll drop off the DDS until the clipping goes away, which is about 2.1 volt. We're getting 44.6 out. It's not running at the full 35 volt plus minus, so yeah. Current draws around about 1.2 amp. The supply's dropped off to about 26 volt. So what I might do is I might leave that run for about 5 minutes and see how hot this heatsink actually gets. And I think we're still clipping, so I'll drop it down to 2 volt. So we'll check back in just a minute. Penis. Well, it's been a good 5 minutes now, long enough to have a smoke anyway, and yeah, that's not even warm. It's tepid at the best. It's hard to describe on video just how hot something is. I mean, I could stick a thermometer on there, but we're not going to see much more than about 15 degrees Celsius. I'm telling you that now. And the flat pack transistors mounted to the heatsink are mildly warm. Both sides are neither hotter than the other. The driver transistors, can't even feel them. The 2 transistors in the Cascode VAS, mildly warm, probably about 16 degrees, slightly hotter than this. Yeah, so that's a good test. I'm happy. Now I can move on to the next thing. So tomorrow's little escapade will be to drill out the chassis here to mount all the circuit boards, the transformer, and do some wiring up to the circuitry and all that to make it work. And then I'll do a final test just with the power amp and the power supply and speaker protector installed, just to make sure that all the circuit boards are going to work with each other and not conflict, whatever. and then I'll start working on drilling the panels. Now, I haven't done drilling guides for the front panel or the rear panel yet, so that'll be another thing I'll do later tomorrow. But mostly it'll be doing that, and I'm not going to take much video of it. I'll just show the result when I've drilled it all out, wired it up, and then I'll move on to doing the drilling guides. So, and what I'm planning on doing also is, as we've got a rail here, I might put one in here at the front, somewhere back here, just so that when the front panel is off, it still maintains the case's integrity and rigidity, because there's only going to be 2 screws holding the bottom in once the front panel comes off, and that's the 2 on the sides. So I'm going to add another rail in there just to keep it all rigid, and avoid picking this up as much as possible. But for now, I'm just going to put it away for the night, edit what I've got, and continue on tomorrow. Okay, it's the next day. It's raining a bit outside, so it's not the best. That's a bit bent. I've got everything mounted to the chassis now. The power amp, the power supply, the transformer, and the speaker protector. Now all I need to do is do the internal wiring for the DC stuff and the transformer, just so I can plug it in and test it to see if there's any strange noises or what have you on the speaker output, because I'm interested to know if this is going to work in the circuit, even though I have drilled the holes already to mount the PCB, but it should work. I don't see any reason why not. Also got my star earth point here, and I've got some self-adhesive rubber feet stuck to the bottom of the case if at some stage I want to pull them off and mount this into a wooden cabinet, which is what I was planning on doing. Is most guitar amplifier heads are mounted into either a plastic substrate or a wooden cabinet, either as a separate box or into the speaker cabinet that it's powering, mainly for travelability and ruggedness. So at the moment it's just going to be a metal case, I'm going to put the top on as well, but even if I put it in a wooden cabinet, all the covers are still going to be on, but it's just going to be put into a wooden cabinet just to make the thing more travel friendly, I guess. Okay, so I've done all the wiring. I've just hooked up the speaker to the output of the relay. The output of the power amp is connected to the protector, and I've got my mains wiring into my terminal block up here. I'm just ready to plug him in and see what happens. Now, remember, adding a power cord with it just floating around like this is considered quite dangerous, so don't attempt anything similar unless you know what you're doing. And always remember, treat the live mains with respect. It does pack a bit of a bite. Now, plug it in, hopefully nothing goes bang. And nothing happened at all. Okay, I was just looking at it, and apparently you do actually need both of these AC connections connected to the secondary of the transformer, but it says 50 volt max AC across there. So that could be a slight issue. Okay, so I've got a jumper lead hooked to the other side of the transformer. I did try taking it to ground, that didn't work. So, try again. Now it works. Okay, well it is a 25 volt transformer, so if you do the math, that's 50 volt. So that should be fine. That just means I've got to now wire up another wire to the other side of the secondary. But, well, it's pretty obvious it's not going to work because that is a full wave rectifier. Now, I'm just going to do a quick voltage check here. The voltage rail across the power amp, which is 77.8 volt, or 38.8 roughly, that side. 38.8 that side, and on the 15 volt rail we have 30 volt 0.6, 15 one side, 15 the other. Now I want to go to AC voltage, and I'll measure across this input from the transformer. We've got 58 volt there, so close to 60. Now I'm just going to have a quick check of something. Just looking at the schematic there for the AC sense, it does say 50 volt AC max, but all it's doing is going into the base of that transistor Q1, so that it's not going across a capacitor or anything, so the likelihood of damaging or blowing up a capacitor is not going to be a problem. That MKT cap there, 470 nanofarads, worth 100 volt anyway. I'm pretty sure it'll be fine. We can do a calculation here. After rectification, remember we're going to have half the voltage here, so it'll be about 38 volt present at this 10k resistor. And we can confirm that by measuring the other side of the bridge rectifier there. Oh, not the bridge rectifier, the full wave rectifier. And see what voltage we've got at the 10k resistor. We have 25.6. So, and that's because there's no smoothing capacitor there, so it's not filtering it. So that's raw AC, so you're going to be getting close to 38 volt with smoothing. So that's perfectly fine. It's not going to kill the base of that transistor, which is located just there. Not even hot. So it's safe to assume that's going to run fine, and we've obviously got an output. It's connected to that one there. I can't hear anything. So it's not noisy. So I'm happy. So all I've got to do now is just add an extra wire across to the other side of the transformer. And yeah. Okay, that's corrected now. I've got a yellow wire there just so everyone can say, oh, yep, he fucked up. So plug it back in. And away it goes. Problem solved. Right, moving on to the next bit, I suppose. I broke it. No, I had to take the sides off in order to get the front panel off, because the front panel actually screws into a couple of these holes here on the edge, and of course when this panel is sitting over the edge of that, like so, you can't get to the screw. So I had to take it apart, but that's okay because everything's mounted on the bottom panel and it's just sitting there quite happily. So I've just got to be careful picking this up because it will flex, but I'll move that somewhere out the way with the side panels, and I'm going to start work on the front panel. Okay, it's time to drill the front panel. Same method as that other amplifier. Stick the piece of paper to the panel as a drilling guide and then rip it off later. Now I can just verify that these hole centers line up by just bringing my preamp board in and just looking at the hole centers, and yep, they line up. And if I have to do a little bit of massaging with a round file on either side of these sockets here to make the board fit a little bit more better, or some of these holes, whatever, not a big deal. So time to center punch it and drill it. So the front panel's all drilled and sized up to the correct sizes and everything fits nicely. So now the next thing to do is to do the labelling. I'm going to use some red letraset, some of that. I reckon that'll look nice against the black panel there. It's 4.9 millimeters to 5 millimeter high, so it's not too overly big. But yeah, I'm going to rub those on and then spray some clear coat over the top of this panel and set him to dry and then put it back together. I'm probably only going to drill the front today. I just want to get the thing mounted back to the case, preamp in, all working. The rear can be removed separately from the case anyway. It doesn't need to be on the case to make the case in one piece, but the front panel does. So once I've done the lettering and done the clear coat protectant, it'll go back on the amplifier front panel where it's supposed to go, and that's the last time it's coming off. I've got the panel over there cooking. Of course, dark red does not work against black, does it? Don't! So it's pretty hard to read, and as soon as I put the clear coat on top, it made it even harder to read. But oh well, I'm not doing it again. It is marked. You can see it. It's only just to give a reference as to what each control does. And I didn't mark the power switch because I'm going to be using one of those leftover switches with the on-off symbol on it. You know, the 0 with the line through it. So that's pretty much self-explanatory as to what it does. Now, in order to mount this preamp to the front panel, these locating lugs on the pot itself have to be removed. So I'm just going to get a pair of pliers and hold the pot. This is kind of awkward to do. And just break it off. You could probably use side cutters too, but that's what I'm going to do all the way along so that this fits up flush against the panel. Penis! Okay, so I've got the front panel mounted to the sides again, the rails back in for the heatsink. Actually makes it quite rigid. Handles are on and the power switch is in because it's probably easier to do the power switch with it out of the case. Anyhow, this should now just slide back over the bottom half of the amplifier, and you can't really see the text. Okay, so I take the bottom chassis, I take the amplifier front panel, and this will just slide on top of the bottom like that, and then the front panel meets up with that like that, and all I have to do is put some screws in it to hold it together, and now the two halves are complete. Penis! Okay, now I can put the preamplifier in. I'm sorry. I'm just at that stage of the day where I'm just like, you know, being stupid. So I need a couple of pot nuts. I'm not going to take this back out. I've got the necessary wiring I need for the effects send and return. Preamp out already wired in. So the, what was I thinking of? Unbalanced one will just be wired to the PC stakes at the top of the circuit board here, so I don't have to take the board out to do this. So once this wall goes in, that's going to be it. By the way, those red washers that come with these sockets here, they go behind the front panel. It adds an extra bit of spacing, about a mil or so, because this edge of this socket is not directly flush with the edge of the circuit board, so otherwise it'll pull it at an angle. So that's what that red thing is for, is a spacer. So now we tighten the nuts. We don't over tighten these input socket and the output socket ones because they will strip, they're only plastic. Tighten up the pot nuts. Be careful when using pliers. There is actually a nut driver designed for this, but if you're going to use pliers, just be very careful not to go snap on the end of this shaft, or you can break it off. And I've seen plenty of guitar amplifiers with broken knob shafts on them before. Well, that could be due to people being rough with them, though. Last two nuts. That's what she said. These nuts be tight. So I'll turn all these potentiometers down to 0, because now it wouldn't be complete without some knobs. I've got 3 of each colour. I've got 3 red, 3 green, 3 blue, and 3 yellow, and I'm just deciding which colours to use for what. So I might make my master volume the red one. Line up the pointer to around about there. Push him on. That's fine. The green one I might use for the input gain. So that one goes on like that. Which I might use the blue ones for the bass, middle and treble, and the yellow for the effect. Oh, looks like I bought one. Pity no one can see the fucking text. But anyway, that doesn't really matter. So next I'm going to wire the preamp to the power amp, signal wire, power, and then I'm going to plug it in and see what happens. Penis! The preamp is hooked up to the power amp, it's hooked up to the 15 volt power supply, the LED of the power switch is also hooked across the positive and zero 15 volt rail of the power supply through a 100 ohm dropping resistor. Probably doesn't need it. I mean, it's supposed to operate at 12 volt, yes, but there'd already be a dropping resistor internal to the switch anyway, but it doesn't matter. It's just, you know, sitting in there. So now I'm going to plug it in, so that light should light up immediately. Where's your does? The relay just engaged. Of course, the switch isn't doing anything. Now I can't hear anything coming out the speaker. It is connected to a speaker. There is a slight buzz there. I've got hiss. So I can't hear anything unusual. So let me get a lead. Turn that one up, that one up. Nice. Okay, hook it up to an instrument. Better not do that too much because that driver can't handle it. Okay, I'm going to hook this up to that 16 ohm crap speaker that I've got lying around, because there is a little bit of a rattle in that desktop speaker, but that's not really a great issue, so I'll just unplug him. Okay, that's the other speaker connected, so sounds a bit better too. So let's see how well we can crank this. Okay, a little bit more bass. Okay, turn the bass back down the middle, put the treble up. Sounds a bit better. All the way treble. Okay, so let's give it some mid. Okay, yeah, that seems to be working pretty well. yeah, okay, so I'm happy with that. It's just a shame that you can't see the writing though. That's the only annoying thing. That's actually doing my OCD and doing my head in. But yeah, anyway. So anyway, we know my penis is working. I mean, we know that's working. Just doing a little heat test here. Those drivers are actually getting quite hot when I was playing bass. However, you'll notice that the signal wire going into the power amp here is not grounded. It doesn't need to be. Just thought I'd share that. So the project is coming on. All I need to do now is do the rear panel and do the mains wiring, and it's complete. It's just a shame that you can't really see the writing. In actual fact, the the clear lacquer made it worse. But does it matter? No. Am I happy? Yes. So next thing to do would be to drill the back panel and label that and put it on, and yeah, we're finished. But that'll be a job for another day. I've kind of had enough for now.